Good afternoon, all. If I told you there was a movie that was both a Western, a science fiction movie, a horror movie, a comedy, and starred a singing cowboy, two Mexican bathing beauties, uh, a monster that's really a Martian prince, a cyclops, a talking skeleton, and a sort of upright walking spider, and a robot that looks like it was cobbled together from cardboard boxes of faded silver. It looks like it cost about 2 cents, and a stunning space vampire. Would you think it was real? Well, it is. That's a description of Ship of Monsters, a Mexican science fiction movie from 1960. It was directed by uh, Rogelio A. Gonzalez and produced by Jesus Sotomayor Martinez, written by Alfred Varela Jr. And it stars Eulalio Gonzalez as Loriano Gomez, who is a singing cowboy, uh, Ana Bertha Lepe as Gamma, a Venusian scientist, and Lorena Velazquez as Beta, a scientist from a planet called which is apparently similar to Venus, and Herberto Davila Jr. as Chuy Gomez, Loriano's younger brother, who's about is 7 or 8. And the plot is absolutely nuts. Women on Venus who are commanded by their queen, played by Conseulo Frank, to go out and find eligible males because all the males on their planet have died from radiation sickness due to an atomic war. So they need other males, and they're not very specific about what they want, only that they want the best males from every planet that they find. Um, they're headed towards a different planet when something goes wrong with their spaceship. The robot warns them that there's something wrong with the left engine. They ignore him, and then something actually breaks in the left engine. It looks like a piece of string, literally. And now they have to crash land on Earth. And this landing is seen by Loriano, who's on his horse, and he's singing a song about, I wish the stars would bring me a woman to love. And he meets these two alien space women who come out of the spacecraft. They tell the robot to hide the other males that they've found in a cave so people can't discover them. And that's a kind of a goofy scene. They're encased in plastic, and he kind of freezes them with this gas that comes out of his robotic claws. And then they Beta and Gamma go out to explore the town. They're wearing these like outrageous, like the Gamma is wearing what's basically a swimsuit, and it's really tight. And they've got ray guns that look like they're made for about 15 cents. And they have a strange device that there's two parts to it. One part freezes somebody, and the other is like it looks like a radio and a television combined. And they didn't have those in 1960. And what it does is it reads somebody's mind and lets them see what they're thinking and what words mean because they don't speak English, obviously, or Spanish, obviously. And they're trying to converse with Loriano, who happens along, and they're trying to talk to him. They can't figure out what language he speaks. And he finally says, "Why don't you speak Spanish?" And they say, "Oh, we understand." And then they start speaking in Spanish to him, and they ask him, "Are we on subworld A2638B or something like that?" And he says, "No, you're in Mexico." And they say, "Mexico? Where's Mexico?" And they point the beam at him, freeze him for a second, and the screen shows scenes of Mexico and where Mexico is and what the country is, etc. Then they unfreeze them. When someone's unfrozen, they don't remember. They just continue speaking like nothing happened, which I thought was funny. And he says, looking at their outfits, he says, "Where's the rest of the circus?" And they say, "Circus? What's a circus?" And they do the same thing again. They freeze them and look up what's a circus. And they unfreeze them and say, "Yes, we're from the circus, and the tents will be along in a while." And then they go up on their way. They don't actually abduct Loriano. He goes back and tells the story to these people in a bar who he's like a big liar. He's always making things up. He was being chased by dinosaurs and bandits, and he took his gun and knife and he put it in the middle of the knife and it split a bullet and it killed two bandits at the same time. And the bartenders are just laughing at him. They know he's like a huge liar. So when he tells them this story about these gorgeous women from outer space, they think he's just lying again. They won't believe him. The Venusians still try and go about. They communicate with the queen. She say, "We haven't found anybody suitable yet." And she says, "Well, get the most gorgeous male that you can." Well, the two girls both want Loriano, and they meet him at his farm. They bring their robot Tor with them. And at first, his little brother is afraid of Tor. He says, "Oh, no, no, he likes children. Don't worry, he won't harm your little brother. He likes him." And he picks him up and starts kind of like singing to him, which I thought was kind of silly. And he's attracted to a jukebox that they have. The robot is like in love with the jukebox that they have in the barn. And there's some kind of silly stuff, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. Where's the circus going to be? And they're still lying to him about it. And they say, "Well, we don't have any place to stay in town." He, rather smarmily says, "You can stay with me." I think he's kind of hoping that he's going to score with both of them, and that turns out not to be the case. I think they put him in some sort of like a freeze ray, so he can't really do anything. And then the plot just takes a completely wild twist at this point. It turns out that of all the bizarre things you could come up with, it turns out that Beta, the girl played by Lorena Velazquez, who is amazingly, stunningly gorgeous, is a vampire. And she starts preying on some of the townspeople. And then Gamma receives a communication from the Queen, who tells her, Beta has committed a terrible act and she must be executed, and you have to go out and get her and stop her. And with Tor's help, she tries to, intercept her. Beta, in her defense, kind of takes over the ship and takes over Tor, so Gamma can't use them, and she unfreezes the monsters and has them attack the town. She's going to destroy the Earth. Loriano rides in, singing as usual on his horse, and tries to convince the town people, the same ones who know that he's this outrageous liar, that they're in trouble. They won't believe him, but finally he gets, I think, a few of them to come with him, including this fat guy who he's always joking around with, and they get to his barn with the monster, one of the monsters, who is just a talking, laughing skeleton. Now, I don't know how the Venusians thought that they could ever make use of this quote-unquote male, because he doesn't have any physical form. He's just a walking, laughing skeleton. Destroys one of his cows with a ray gun, turns it into a skeleton. And then now he's really mad, and he's trying to destroy these creatures. And they go into this big fight where they're punching and kicking. It looks like something out of an amateur wrestling movie. And eventually, Beta is thwarted by the kind of spiderish creature and is killed, and the Cyclops. I think they pounce on her and kill her, throw her into a pit or something. Loriano and Chuy manage to kill her. Chuy hits the quote-unquote Martian prince in the eye with a slingshot, and that kills him. His head collapses like a balloon. That was kind of a funny effect. And then they get rid of the other monsters. The skeleton's destroyed, and the Cyclops. And now Gamma reports back to the Queen that they've destroyed Beta and that they've destroyed the monsters, and they're going to come back. She's trying to convince Loriano to come with her, but he convinces her instead to stay on Earth with him. She sends Tor back to Venus. So basically their mission was a failure. They didn't bring back any males, and the singing cowboy fell in love with her, and she's going to stay with him on Earth. And that's the end of the movie. Tor, taking the spaceship, which again is a very cheap plastic-looking model, back to Venus, and he has to report to the Queen that the mission was a failure. Very funny, very silly, very goofy, campy. Now there's actually quite some good songs that Loriano sings, and the soundtrack is quite good. The special effects are awful. You have these wobbly sets. The interior set of the spaceship I thought was actually pretty good. I thought that some of the designs were good, and some of the cinematography was good. Obviously, they shot a lot of it on location, so they didn't have to have expensive sets. Didn't have to build interiors and things on other planets, because it all took place in Chihuahua, Mexico. Very funny, and I highly recommend it. Ship of Monsters from 1960.